morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this amazing special edition episode all the way from South Africa. I am so excited to listen to these amazing 8 speakers that Lois has brought together. Hit Talks is a platform where we share stories on hope, inspiration and transformation, and we do that in 8 minutes. Yes, we bring you 8 speakers that speak for 8 minutes on 8 different perspectives on hope, inspiration and transformation. There is no selling, there is no positioning, there is just stories from the heart, and that is what Hit Talks is all about. My name is Vicky Thomas and I'm your founder of Hit Talks, but it just gives me so much pleasure to actually pass the baton of host across to Lois so she can actually present her 8 speakers. So enjoy this episode and I'll see you at the end.
Hi everyone, it's fabulous to be here. And I have to thank Vicky very, very much for this opportunity. And I have to thank Jane for all the background work that she is doing for us. It's absolutely awesome what everybody's doing. And I'm Lois from Walking Without Skin, and I'm going to be introducing 8 PSA speakers to you tonight. PSA stands for Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. And these 8 speakers are going to be talking about hope, inspiration, and transformation. And it's just amazing. I've know all of these 8 people, but I have no idea what they're going to be sharing with us tonight. So I'm just as intrigued as all of you. So I'm really honored to be hosting this. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, "The most beautiful person I've known are those who have known trials, have known struggles, have known loss, and have found their way out of the depths." And Helen Keller says, "All the world is full of suffering. It is also full of overcoming." So let us overcome. Let us find the hope and inspiration from our speakers tonight, and let's create transformation in our own and in other people's lives. So I'm so happy to welcome our 8 PSASA speakers. And the first speaker I would like to introduce you to is Joni Peddy. Joni, as a keynote speaker, focuses on enabling people to boost their resilience, mentality, physicality, and emotionally. Joni, as a behavioral scientist, is also insatiably curious about what drives us as humans. She is steeped in the system of Enneagram of personality. Joni's personal purpose on this planet is to practically and actionably help people live their lives in a consistent state, optimal energy, agility, and fulfillment. Well, Joni, you certainly live that, and I wish you would bring that to me a little bit more. Joni is our immediate PSASA past president. And she says that she's been stupid enough to run the 90-kilometer Comrades Marathon. Not only has she run it once, she's run it 5 times. So, Joni, welcome to Hit Talks.
Superb, and thank you so much, Lois. Yes, I am going to talk about brain transformation. And Lois, I have done some very stupid things in my life. And thank goodness I've got over running that 90-kilometer ultra marathon. So what I want to talk about tonight is really what I'm seeing people are saying to me. I don't know, many of you are launching facilitated meetings online, and you do a mentee meet at the start, and you say, right, people, how are you feeling today? And what do they type in? Overwhelmed, frazzled, tired, exhausted, flat, just numb. And really, people are feeling and thinking about these things on an ongoing basis, but just feeling at the bottom of the pit. So let's chat about what we can do about this. As Lois so rightly said, my personal purpose on the planet is to inspire actionable resilience techniques for each of us to live an optimal high energy life. So I'm going to speak about sleep, being the Swiss Army knife of health. Have you heard these three terms? Momsomnia, dadsomnia, and coronasomnia. Well, some research has just been launched in the States this last week called momsomnia. So mothers who have got backpacks to briefcases, going to work, managing children, their insomnia is up 40%. And actually, I'm dealing with people in Kuwait, Australia, South Africa, Europe, the States. And most people I speak to say, Joni, I am battling not only to fall asleep. Sometimes I fall asleep quite easily, but I battle to stay asleep. So that's insomnia. And if you couple that with battling to wake up refreshed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, of course, then you're in the right place now. Let me share 10 tips with you. So we want to get out of this terrible vicious circle where you really lack sleep, you skip exercise, you feel terribly stressed, you eat very bad food, and guess what? You have a bad night's sleep again. And so this vicious circle continues. So I want to share with you 10 ways to actually get off that hamster wheel and do life differently with a lot more energy and a lot more vitality. So sleep starts, and good sleep starts from the minute you wake up in the morning. What happens overnight is that your brain does not sleep. Your brain is incredibly busy overnight. So it's flushing out plaque between the neurons, like you get plaque between your teeth, and that plaque is called beta amyloid. You need a minimum, wait for it, of 7 hours sleep per night. That's consistently. That's not just, let me try Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday goes out the window. So 7 nights a week, you need a minimum of 7 hours per night so that your brain can flush out that plaque, that toxin called beta amyloid. What happens when you flush it out is you wake up in the morning and your brain has gone from a beautiful grape to a little funny, scrunchy raisin. So your brain has actually dehydrated overnight. And what do many of us do as we wake up? We put on that kettle and we make ourselves a cup of Java, a cup of joy. Hand on heart, I do this. But what I do as well, because I'm steeped in brain science and neuroscience, is that I make this and I have a mug or a flask of water at the same time. So it is about balance. So that my brain goes from that little raisin scrumpled up to a beautiful, plush, juicy green grape. So first tip is have water with your cup of Java in the morning. The second tip is that we really want to make sure that we move our bodies during the day. So what does that mean? It means that you get your heart rate up. So you want to time that. You want to say, maybe I'm too busy to do a half an hour walk in the morning, but I do 10 minutes really before I have breakfast, 10 minutes before lunch, and 10 minutes before supper. So the brain and the body enjoys movement. Sitting is the new smoking. And of course, we do know that if you sit for longer than 2 hours, your good cholesterol goes down by 40%. So we've got water, we've got movement. Tip number 3 is that you want to really be careful about what fuel you put into your ecosystem. And the fuel that really messes with your sleep is sugar. So minimize that sugar, minimize those dreadful donuts. Tip number 4 is around caffeine. So I go to sleep, Lois knows, that's why I asked for the first slot at about 9 o'clock at night. Why? Because I wake up naturally without an alarm at about 4:30 in the morning. So how do I do that is that I limit my caffeine for 8 hours before I go to bed. So when I say limit, I should actually rephrase it. I stop having any tea, coffee, or green tea by 1 o'clock after lunch. So I have nothing, no caffeine until the next day. So caffeine has about an 8-hour half-life in your body. Stop it 8 hours before you go to sleep. So that's tip number 4. Tip number 5, I'm normally wearing these at this time of night, but I thought for effect I won't put them on before I start chatting to you, is it's imperative with our screen time to all be wearing blue blocker glasses. We get blue light off our computer screens, off our mobiles, off the lights, the LED lights in the ceiling. That interferes with the pineal gland and the production in your brain of melatonin. So if you're one of those people that are waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to count sheep, do many other things, and battling, you really want to wear and get a pair of blue blocker glasses. I used to say to people before the pandemic, wear them about 60 to 90 minutes before you go to sleep. Now I wear mine from 4 o'clock in the afternoon because we're on screens for so many hours during the day. Tip number 6 is about your sleep hygiene at night. So this is my tip, is that a beautiful hot Epsom salts bath with some lavender oil or fresh lavender out the garden absolutely calms and relaxes your brain after a stimulating or tense, a difficult day in the office. So think about, how do I really relax my whole system? And good old Epsom salts does the trick. Tip number 7 is that you really need to look at the things that you do in your bedroom. Your boudoir is only there for 3 things. Can you guess what they are? Yes, you're in your boudoir to sleep, you're in your boudoir to read, and you're in your bedroom for intimacy. There should be no TV, no working on your laptop, no eating supper. Oh my goodness, people do those really bad things in their bedroom. And that really affects your circadian rhythm, and it affects the way you get into quality sleep. The next tip is about a cool bedroom. So if you want a good night's sleep, your brain wants your bedroom to be between 16 and 18 degrees Celsius. So make sure that you have a cool bedroom. And then we also need a dark bedroom. So if you don't have blackout curtains, what you want to do is just simply wear a mask to sleep. So this is my mask. It's got beautiful beaded eyelashes. And when I go to sleep at night, that's what I put on, so that I don't get shafts of light going under my eyelid, also affecting the production of melatonin. And then the very last and 10th tip is about apps. Yes, technology is our friend. Make sure that you have got this device on airplane mode next to your bed. But have a look at Headspace, Calm, and the app that I use is called Brain Tap. It gets audio into your ears at different frequencies, and it really helps calm your brain down. Thank you for listening, and have a great night's sleep tonight.
Wow, Joni, that's a lot of stuff to take in. Incredible tips. Most of them very easy to implement, but we don't do it. And I think we should. 10 tips. And I must say, what you said, you do stupid things in your life. This is not one of those stupid things, because it gives you a juicy brain. And I love that. So let's all get juicy brains and follow Joni's 10 tips for a good night's sleep for optimal brain health. And I'm sure optimal physical health as well. So thank you, Joni. That was a really insightful chat, and it's something that we can all work towards achieving. So thank you very much. So I'd like now to introduce our next PSASA speaker, and that is Tyron Harding. Welcome, Tyron. Tyron is a professional speaker and facilitator. His passion is helping others in the areas of trauma, overcoming adversity, and disability integration. After being shot and paralyzed during an armed home invasion in 2016, his life changed dramatically. Learning a great deal about trauma to understand his own, he now shares what he has learned to help others. So fantastic. Thank you for being able to share this with the world, Tyron. I asked him what his hobbies were, and he said that they were not socially acceptable, and he refuses to say or explain what they are. So now I'm really, really intrigued, and he will not tell me what his hobbies are. So if you can get it out of him, please share it with the rest of us. And also, even though he's paralyzed from the waist down, he says he can sometimes feel his feet, not his legs, just his feet. So, Tyron, thank you very much for being here. We are looking forward to your 8 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Lois. I'm really glad to be here. So, good evening. It's evening here for us. And yes, I want to talk about trauma, because trauma is inevitable. And I know this because 6 years ago, I was shot during an attempted home invasion. I essentially had a 5-week induced coma, so a really long nap. And when I woke up, I was missing organs and I could not feel the bottom half of my body. Trauma has happened. It has happened to me. But since then, I've tried to understand my trauma. I've done some investigation into it, looked at the research behind it, and I realized there's so much there that we have learned in the last two decades, essentially, but it's not reaching people on the ground level, people that need it most. I didn't get any of this information when I was in the hospital, in the rehab, and now I want to share this with people to help them. You see, I have two goals. Firstly, I want to help people who have experienced trauma. And for those that haven't experienced trauma, I want to make them trauma resilient. Now, just because of the time that we have tonight, I'm not going to be talking about the trauma resilience. I'm just going to be talking about those that have experienced trauma and what we can do. Now, if you have experienced trauma, I urge you to seek help from a psychologist or a therapist. There are some amazing treatments that they can perform now that have been studied over the last few years, specifically something like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. This has been shown to reduce the chance of PTSD after traumatic event from 80% chance to 20% chance. And then CPT, which is cognitive processing therapy, is actually designed specifically for trauma and PTSD to help people heal from that. Now, there are different statistics about how effective these treatments are, but regardless of what the number is, it is effective. It has helped and does help many people on a daily basis. So if you've experienced a traumatic event, I really do recommend that you go for treatment or something like that. Look into these two treatments. Now, so let's talk about post-traumatic growth. This is the process of growing as an individual after a traumatic event. It's not because of the event, it is how you grow, how you have perceived the world, how that has changed in the time since your trauma. And there are 5 main areas that are affected in this. The first is new possibilities. For instance, in my case, I was never a public speaker. Speaking to more than 5 people at a time would freak me out. But since my injury, I was open to new ideas. And when I realized that I can help people just by telling my story, I realized I can do this and I enjoy it. I've spoken to rooms of hundreds of people without any issues. And I would never have perceived that for myself. So I did grow in new possibilities. The second is improved relationships. You tend to have deeper connections and appreciate those people in your lives more. So it's easier to care for people. You tend to care about them more. And that's potentially what happened with me here as well. So I have definitely had all 5 symptoms, but so far these 2. The third is improved personal strength. There's a quote I want to read. It says, "I am more vulnerable than I thought, but stronger than I could ever have imagined." And this is true for a lot of people that have survived a potentially life-threatening traumatic experience. They have been through something bad and they realize they are vulnerable, but they managed to get through it and found inner strength that they didn't know existed. They didn't know existed until I needed it most. So the joke that I have here is that if I can survive getting shot, I can survive something like someone giving me negative critique on a talk that I gave or something. So it does change that perception. The 4th section that it affects is appreciation for life. Now, I've had a joke pretty much since the get-go, since I had to learn to use a wheelchair, that a wheelchair is better than a hearse. So for me, my life is different now. It has changed. It is different on so many different levels, but it doesn't make it any less valuable. So in that case, I truly appreciate my life, and everything is in perspective with it could always be worse because I've been through worse than what I'm going through at the moment. And the 5th and final area is greater spiritual and religious beliefs. And I've definitely had an experience in that line as well. Now, post-traumatic growth can happen naturally, and it does often happen naturally, but it can be encouraged. And there's 5 specific ways that it can be done. But for tonight, there are 2 that matter most. The first is through education. The more you learn about trauma and post-traumatic growth and PTSD, the more it helps you to just understand what's going on, what you're exposed to, the things that you're feeling, and be open to it. I only discovered the term post-traumatic growth something like 3 years after my injury. And suddenly it started making sense. When I looked into the information that I was getting, all the research, everything, I ticked every single one of those boxes. And that to me was amazing because I never knew that something good can honestly come out of something bad. But this has been part of philosophy in humans since the dawn of time, that we go through trials so that we appreciate things more. And this is just the psychological understanding of that. And the second aspect to encouraging post-traumatic growth is to be of service. Essentially, it is wanting to help other people gives meaning to your life. And it also sparks all the other aspects like deeper connections with people and all that kind of stuff. So that's why my goal now is to help other people with their traumas, with going through that process. They realize they don't have to be alone. We can build a community to support each other and encourage post-traumatic growth. And finally, I want you to remember there is life after trauma. It might not be the same. It might look completely different, but there is life after trauma and it is valuable. Thanks. Back to you, Lois.
Thank you, Taran. I think you didn't even use up your 8 minutes. So thank you very much. Wow, Taran, that is such a powerful story with such powerful messages. You know, we are not alone, and it's so important that you shared that with the world. Everybody suffers trauma. It may not be as dramatic or traumatic as yours, but it's trauma nonetheless. And I love all your acronyms, CBT and CPT and PTSD. I hope everybody could follow all of that. This game is full of acronyms. But yes, education and service. If people can develop those 2, and I'm looking forward to hearing your other 3, to be able to help others, it's the most rewarding thing. And as Joni said as well, she helps others all the time with the work that she does. And both speakers so far have spoken about resilience, how we build our resilience, which is so important, especially when we go through times like we've been going through for the last how many months. So thank you very much for that, Taran. So I want to bring up our next speaker now. And our next speaker, she kindly jumped in last month when we did our special edition, when one of the other speakers couldn't make it. And she jumped in and filled a gap. So Rebecca Sabia, thank you so, so very much for your generosity and for coming again tonight. Rebecca is passionate about self-leadership and self-mastery. She's worked in human resources, research, banking, and education. So she's got a diversity of experience with a global multicultural mindset. She was also part of a train leadership initiative where over 100 certified trainers and coaches collaborated to train leaders in Uganda. And she's encouraging and helping others to be hopeful. That is her mission in life. And a fun, interesting fact about Rebecca, she loves coloring in books and doodling and puzzles. So, Rebecca, welcome.
Yeah, I think mine is better now.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you, Lois, for this opportunity. I'm thinking a few years ago, when I used to wake up at 3 a.m., I wake up at 3 a.m. so that I can pray, so that I can meditate, and I normally do my reading at that time. But this particular day when I wake up, I had a very important meeting that I had to prepare for. And yes, as usual, I made sure that, I continue with my routine. But that day, I didn't realize and I did not know that intruders will come and want to join me. They came into the house, and what I could choose was either for me to flight or to fight. But I chose the latter. And after they've left, the sense of loss that I felt, I couldn't actually explain it. But when I was chatting to other people, or even my husband, we realized that those are material things. But is it okay for other people to choose to take what is yours? I don't know. And I realized that as people, we make choices every day of our lives. Whether you wake up and eat breakfast, or as Johnny said, that, taking care of yourself and making sure that you sleep early and doing everything that you know that is healthy. Or as Tyrone said, that you need to be resilient. Even if you face difficult times, you need to stand up from where you are and keep on going. That was not the only loss that I felt. June 2021, this year, I lost my grandfather. And I'm not so sure how I actually felt about his loss. I knew him when I was young, but because he chose to live his life somewhere else without us, I lost that connection with him. But what I knew was that for his final says, for his final, burial, he needs to be at home, as he said. And as they say, normally, you need to respect the last wishes of a person who's not with us. And we did exactly that. We buried him with a sense of loss, not only losing him, but also losing the time that we could have spent with him, but also with dignity. The beginning of July, I lost my father. He's been battling with, he was battling with cancer, he was battling with this and that. And finally, he decided to lose the battle in July this year. And that was very difficult because it was not only losing him as a person, but it was also losing the time that we spent, either, chatting about certain things or not agreeing on certain things or just life in general. But also, I knew that my mom was losing a certain part of her. And how were we going to face my mom without him? because they were always together. But what I also knew was that my mom had to make a choice. You see, John Maxwell says that life is a matter of choices, and every choice you make makes you. Yes, my mom is still dealing with that, and my mom is still have to make choices every day. I am wondering, what choices do you have to make? Are you making the right ones, or are you making the convenient choices at that time? People will say that lockdown has been a difficult time. I've got mixed feelings about lockdown because, yes, it has been very difficult. Yes, it has its own ups as well. But I've experienced loss during lockdown. In August, during my birthday, I lost 3 friends in a matter of 3 weeks. And I realized that no matter what happens in life, you still have to make choices, because we make choices every day. And I learned that I need to choose to care. That's the first thing. If you don't know what to do in terms of choosing, choose to care. Whether it's choosing to care about the people that you love, whether it's choosing to care about the community, or whether it's choosing to care about yourself. But I would advise you to be able to care, to choose to care for yourself first before you care for other people. Because caring for yourself is not a selfish act, but it's a selfless act. Remember, you cannot give what you don't have. While I was choosing to care, I also realized that I had to live my life to the fullest. In September, I got a call from my husband telling me that, baby, the car is not at the parking lot. And I thought that is because perhaps he did not know where he parked the car. But that was because the car was stolen. That is part of another loss that I experienced just from June to now. And I chose to collaborate. And when I say choosing to collaborate, I chose to speak to my family about it. I chose to speak to friends about it. I chose to speak to my husband about it. And I also chose to help other people who are going through a difficult time. Because I knew that, yes, I can think about all the losses, the car and all the things that I've lost. But if I choose to do that, because as they say, whatever that you focus on enlarges, then I'm going to see a lot of challenges in my life. I chose to collaborate in a way that I would go and see somebody who can coach me. I would see somebody who could counsel me, because professional help is also needed. On the 6th of this month, the 6th of October, my grandmother, affectionately known as Mma, decided to lose the battle of life. And she raised me. I'm the woman that I am because of her. And she used to say, Matshepo, you need to always choose to do what is right for you. Life has its own challenges, but you always have to ask God to level those challenges for you. You always have to pray. And yes, she was a phenomenal woman. She was a prayerful woman. And I guess I'm a prayerful woman because of her. I chose to care. I chose to collaborate. And the last choice that I made, it was the choice for commitment. And commitment means that you need to act. Commitment means that if you love people, you need to show them that you love them. When you love people, it does not necessarily mean that you need to agree with them all the time. It means that you can disagree with people that you love and still love them. You can feel a sense of loss, but also feel a sense of joy at the same time. If you're going through a difficult time, if you are facing circumstances that you never thought that you could face, I want to encourage you. Choose to care. If not for anybody else, choose to care for yourself. The second thing, choose to collaborate. If there are people that you can speak to, if there's professional help that you need, seek that professional help. The third thing is choose to commit. Choose one thing, one action that you can commit to. The action that will move you from one space to a better space when you are making those life choices. Remember, Nelson Mandela says, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. Choose faith over your fear. I did that. Thank you, Lois.
Ability for sharing, and my heart goes out to you. You've had a really rough ride. We've all had a tough time during the pandemic, but you certainly have been through a tough time. So thank you for sharing that story with us so vulnerably and so passionately. And I love your message, especially the one about choose to care and choose to care for yourself. I think that has got to be the most important thing. If we don't look after ourselves, we don't do the things that Joni and Tyron have told us about, we are going to suffer, and trauma will have impact on us negatively. So thank you so much for sharing your story of loss and choice. Thank you. So now I would like to invite our next speaker to the stage. Audrey Mpela is the founder of Leading Tune, a company that focuses on personal and business development. She's a retail systems training specialist, training store owners, store managers, and system operators. She also trains soft skills. And she's achieved many awards and has delivered talks for leading clients. What's more, she hosts a radio show on a new online radio station, Bloma Nati, where the theme is centered around all things finance and property. She was a semi-finalist for the 2018 Investor of the Year Awards. And she likes to describe herself as being a petite, short, and sweet lady, and she's the only girl among 5 brothers. Welcome to the stage, Audrey. Is Audrey there, or are we having some internet problems?
No, I'm here. I just can't see myself. Can you see me?
No, we can't, unfortunately.
I'm here. Can you hear me though?
We can hear you. We don't see you, though.
Okay. Can you see me now? My camera is on. My microphone is on. Can you see me now? Lois? Lois, can you see me? Can you see me, Lois? I was terribly terrified. I felt like a cockroach. I crumbled and I cried. That was the day I knew that my life would never be the same again. It was a crossroad moment for me. Have you ever had a crossroad moment? No, by crossroad moment, I'm not talking about the Orlando Pirates football club moment. I'm talking about a turning point. A turning point in your life where you had to make tough and difficult situations. Whether you're going to go forward, whether you're going to go back, whether you're going to turn left, or whether you're going to turn right. And knowing that decision is going to change your life forever. A crossroad moment is a turning point moment. Maybe for somebody, that crossroad moment was the time that they got their big break. Yes, in the middle of a pandemic. And maybe for somebody else, it was when they became a parent, a mother, or a father for the first time. And maybe for somebody else, it was when they got cheated on by their girlfriend again. A crossroad moment. Are they going to go back? Are they going to move forward? Are they going to turn left or right? For me personally, a crossroad moment was not that simple. It was the day that my life literally turned upside down. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was on a cool, calm Wednesday afternoon, and I was just driving, minding my own business. When all of a sudden I heard a loud bang. Oh my God. As I was still trying to figure out what was that, my car flipped into the air. As I was still trying to figure out what was happening, the car flipped upside down again. And I was upside down. And it was a roller coaster ride. I was terribly terrified. I felt like a cockroach. I crumbled. I cried. After I stayed in that car for some time, I started to think about my life. I got stuck. I couldn't get out of the car. So don't worry, I survived. I'm here. I'm still alive. You can touch me. I ended up at the hospital. I had to undergo physiotherapy. And I asked God a question at that day. If I had died, what about the dreams that I had? What about the promises that I made and intend to keep? What about all the things that I still wanted to accomplish? What about them? What about them? I asked God that question. A couple of weeks after I have undergone physiotherapy and I'm feeling better, I had to go to the police station to report the accident. And to my surprise, when I got to the police station, I found out that the police already knew about my accident. And I asked them, you knew about it? They asked me, oh, was it your car? That one that was flipping upside down. That one that got squashed this side and this side and this side and this side and squashed. Was that your car? That car is now a write-off. That person is dead. I thought, yeah, that was my car. And that was me inside that car. Yeah. My police station were like, you are still alive. We thought you dead, man. You are still alive. I was like, yes, I'm still alive. They were like, no, we thought you were dead, man. Dead. Did you see that accident? It was bad. And I thought to myself, but if you saw it happen live in action, why didn't you come and rescue me? Why didn't you come and save me? And their response was like, no, we thought you died. And we don't deal with dead people. So the dead people will come and deal with the dead people. It's not us. We don't deal with dead people. Oh, I was shocked. That was a crossroad moment for me. I went back to God and asked him, what if nobody rescued me that day? What about the dreams that I have? What about the promises that I made? What about the things that I want to accomplish? And my message to you tonight is ask yourself the same question that I'm asking you. And my encouragement to you is that pursue your dreams, pursue your goals, the things that you still want to achieve. Pursue the promises that you want to keep as if nobody is coming to rescue you. If you are having a difficult time making those dreams a reality, wake up the next morning and pursue those dreams as if nobody is coming to rescue you. When you get that passion and desire and realizing that tomorrow is not promised to you, when you do that, then you will make those dreams a reality. Pursue those dreams as if nobody is coming to rescue you. Thank you, Lois.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Audrey. So sorry you had a few technical hiccups at the beginning and we missed your very passionate opening visually. We heard it. But wow, that was really powerful. And we are very grateful that you are still alive. We definitely are grateful that you're alive. And such a powerful message. Pursue your dreams. Don't wait for tomorrow. You never know when that crossroads is going to come, and you need to be prepared and just follow your dreams, set your goals, and go for it. So thank you so much, Audrey. That was really beautiful. Our next speaker is Roger. Roger Knowles has practiced as an attorney for over 40 years. And he's still practicing both as an attorney and an advocate. His career has included many examples of conflict, including the struggle for freedom from the apartheid regime that previously ruled South Africa. For the last 30 years, he has dealt mainly with family law and neighbor conflicts as both a litigation lawyer and a mediator. So what do we know about Roger? He loves the sea, and at almost 72 years old is sadly a recovering, not an active surfer. He regularly works out in the gym and enjoys mountain biking, and he hopes someday to relocate to the Klein Karoo, a region of beautiful semi-desert just 1 hour's drive from the ocean. Roger, welcome. The stage is yours.
Lois, I certainly hope that you out there can hear me more clearly than I've heard all of the previous speakers. There is a problem with the Apple microphone which causes stuttering, but it does fix itself part of the way through. So I'm hoping that either it's not stuttering for you at all, or that it's going to help itself. Now, I've got a wonderful story to tell you tonight. It's very different from the speakers we've had before now, I believe. And the first thing I want to do is to say to you, have you been watching the news? You must have been. Isn't the world in one heck of a condition? With wars and strikes and the refugees and the pandemic? Absolutely terrifying, isn't it? We just don't know where it's going to go. And of course, global warming. Jeepers. Which is the most important thing to start on? It's actually very worrying. Some of the real bad news people are saying this could be the end of the world. Drop any more plastic in the ocean and we're all gone. 2 more degrees in the average temperature around the world and we're all gone. Imagine our planet just becoming a dry rock going round and round the sun. It could happen, probably in a couple of thousand years, but nevertheless, frightening. I wanted to actually tell you a story about a time when it was even more frightening. I was just a kid. So most of you won't have been around at that time in the 1960s. In 1962, in fact, something really terrible happened. It was a time, a very, very interesting time of competition between the 2 world superpowers of the United Soviet States of Russia and the United States of America. They were competing with one another to have the biggest army, the best tanks, and the best missiles and best nuclear weapons. They were the first 2 nuclear powers on the face of the planet. And they were involved in an arms race to try to be the strongest. The USA were probably the strongest in terms of technology, and Russia was close behind them and the strongest in terms of the size of its military. And it was terrifying. We knew people would tell us, all of the bad news artists would tell us about how the entire world could get wiped out if those 2 superpowers had a battle, a nuclear battle. They'd seen what nuclear bombs could do when those were dropped on Japan, and they knew that the Russians and the Americans between them had literally hundreds, maybe thousands of nuclear warheads on missiles, on torpedoes in their submarines, which were all over the world in secret hiding, and of course bombs that could be dropped by aircraft. It was terrifying, and everybody could get involved. Even if those 2 countries were just lobbing their bombs at each other, imagine the dust traveling around the world and blocking out the sun. That would be a terrifying way to go. We'd all freeze to death in no time. Okay, so it wasn't a good scene. That was what was going on in the world, and various problems elsewhere. People were fighting, people were arguing with trade unions and so on. The usual stuff was going on under the cloud of this terrible threat. Then in almost the same time of October as we are in now, a spy plane happened to pass over Cuba, taking photographs to send back to the headquarters in Washington. And those photographs were carefully analyzed by a group of people. And can you imagine a room of guys with magnifying glasses and bright lights looking at photographs that had been blown up so that you could see things as small as a suitcase from 60,000 feet up that the spy planes traveled at. And they suddenly spotted what they almost couldn't believe. The Russians were constructing missile silos on Cuba. All over Cuba, there were missile sites. And they realized, oh my gosh, the Russians have got the drop on us. Cuba is only 90 miles off the coast of the United States of America. If there were nuclear missiles armed and ready on Cuba, they could reach certainly most of the East Coast, all of the East Coast of the United States, but even cities on the West Coast in a matter of minutes. They could wipe out the United States of America. Now, the US obviously had their own weapons, but their rockets would take a lot longer to reach Russia. And they wouldn't take just the few minutes, the 10 to 15 minutes that the missiles would take from Cuba to wipe out the American cities. It caused a massive panic. You can imagine what JFK, the young president, the youngest American president, you can imagine what decision he had to try and make. He immediately formed a committee to investigate the various options that the United States had in the face of this terrible threat, just 90 miles off the coast. Heck, you can't see that far from the coast to the next coast, but it's not far. It's not far at all. So he called together a large committee. He put them together in the White House, and he said, I want you to report to me on every possible option that we've got to deal with this. And he, meanwhile, was trying to compose himself and his brother. The two of them sat down, and they had their own ideas. And they eventually got from the committee, before that, they made a demand on Russia immediately to cease construction on Cuba and to dismantle the missiles and remove them. But Russia wasn't just going to back down. They've been naughty boy, been caught out putting missiles close to America, but they weren't just going to back down. So what the two brothers did is they decided that what was needed here was negotiation. Whereas the council in the council chamber said to them, guys, there's only one thing to do: bomb Cuba and invade it. That, of course, was what Cuba feared most of all, was being invaded. 150,000 American troops were massed, ready to go to cross that 90-mile corridor between US and Cuba. But the two Kennedy brothers, were quietly communicating directly with the Kremlin. It was a major step forward. It had never been done before. Two leaders, in not using their councils and their media and so on to communicate, but going direct to them. And JFK sent his brother Bobby to see the Russian ambassador and offered to guarantee that the Americans would not invade Cuba, providing the Russians ceased construction, took their missiles apart, and went back to Russia. The Russians weren't going to give in that easily. They said, guys, we're not going to do that. You've got to remove the missiles that you've got in Turkey pointing at our cities. You see, the Americans had been doing this first. So, yeah, they were getting uptight with the Russians when, in fact, they'd been guilty of the same thing. Fortunately for the entire world, a deal was struck. The brothers had realized that they had to allow Nikita Khrushchev, the president of the USSR, to save face, that he couldn't just back down. They knew that. So they had to do something. But the deal that was finally taken by Bobby to the Russian ambassador was this. They guaranteed that they would not invade Cuba, providing the Russians stopped construction and removed the missiles. They said no way were they going to even admit that they had the missiles in Turkey, but they did say, trust us guys, we'll remove them in a couple of months. And they actually did. It took 13 days from beginning to end, and the entire world was terrified throughout that time. But they actually did it. They actually did the deal, and the missiles were removed from Cuba, and a few months later, the Americans quietly removed theirs from Turkey. So it was a win. It was a win for negotiation. It also woke both superpowers up to the immense danger that the world was facing, and it started the disarmament talks, which led to the dismantling of many, many more nuclear warheads around the world. So it actually had a happy ending in a sense, and that we need to remember, no matter how dark things get, communication is so important. Communicate, and make a plan. And thank you, Lois. Thank you very much for inviting me. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for that story. I mean, I was enthralled. I was around at that time, and I remember we had drills on how to hide and what to do if there was a nuclear war. So I remember that. But it was really enthralling, and some of those facts I had no idea about the talks and how it dismantled, how the warheads were dismantled. So fabulous. Thank you for sharing that story. And it's so true. Communication fixes everything. So thank you, Roger. So our next speaker is Leslie, and I would love to bring Leslie up to the stage. Leslie believes in lifelong personal learning and teaching. Coaching part-time since 2008, Leslie is passionate about enlightening and empowering others. She makes the most of every opportunity to use her extensive insight into personal condition and principles, and this allows her to guide her clients to discover their magnificence. Fabulous. So Leslie, at age 16, became the world's youngest certified water skiing judge at 16 years old. Can you imagine that? And when the organizers found out that she was only 16, they wanted to revoke her certificate, which I don't think they did. But wow, that is fantastic. To be a water skiing judge at 16, she must have been a great water skier. So Leslie, welcome to the stage.
Good evening, everybody in internet land, and thank you, Lois, very much for that introduction. I appreciate it. It's quite a pleasure to be on a panel with such esteemed speakers, so thank you for this wonderful opportunity. My story is a little bit different tonight. My story starts when I was very young, and my story is similar to many of your stories. Every couple of years, every roughly 7 to 10 years, we pass through a new chapter in our lives. And every time we get into a new chapter, we have to transform ourselves. We have to reinvent ourselves because the behaviors and the thought patterns and the actions that we had in one chapter no longer serve us in another chapter. But it is that moment of transition that is really difficult. I remember a time back shortly after I finished high school. I went into college and I started teaching teachers training. I was doing my third year. I really was struggling. It was not working. Things were not going right. And I sat down and I had a discussion with my dad. I said to him, Dad, this is not working. I don't know what to do, but this is not working. So he says, well, what are you going to do if you don't finish the certification? And it was in that moment that my lifelong dream of being a teacher fell apart. I went into the financial services industry, and what happened was it kept coming back to me. The possibility of teaching people, even in the financial services industry, kept coming back to me, kept coming back to me in various forms. And it was only in 2008, after the passing of my husband, that I realized Life was showing me a direction, and I'd been too busy to listen. I had been too busy to listen to the repeated opportunities that had come my way, the doors that were showing open just a little bit, and I didn't step through them. In 2008, after the passing of my husband, I started coaching. I started coaching staff, friends, family members, anybody who needed some help. I retired in 2019, and that is when I went into coaching full-time. But again, I was still in transition and I was still changing. And recently I sat down and I thought about this, and I thought about the journey that I had taken. And I looked back at all of those transitions, all of those chapter changes. Some of them were easy, some of them were not. And I spent a little bit of time trying to work out which were the easy ones and what made them easy, and which were the difficult ones and what made them difficult. And I came to realize that all the easy ones had one thing in common. All the easy ones had been me in a position where I was standing in confidence, ready to move out of that old chapter and into the new chapter. The ones that I really struggled with were the ones that I wasn't in confidence. I was uncertain. I was scared. I was fearful. And I started delving into that a little bit to understand why it was difficult. And I realized it was one thing. It was all about what I now call the zone of fear. You see, folks, we all have comfort zones in our life, in every area of our life, in our personal lives, in our relationships, in our careers, in our work, in our relationships with our kids, in our relationships with our parents, our siblings. In every area of life, in your spiritual life, in your health, in your money, we have zones of comfort. The question is, do you stand in your zone of comfort, and are you held prisoner in that zone of comfort by what is just on the outside of that zone of comfort? You're standing in your zone of comfort, safe and protected. In order to move out of your zone of comfort, you have to go through a very narrow zone of fear. What happens on the other side of that zone of fear is you move into a zone of learning. Learning new skills, learning new abilities, learning of different ways of doing things, learning about the new chapter that you're moving in. And as you move through that learning, you start tipping your toes into the fourth zone, which is the zone of growth. And it's only when you fully step into that zone of growth that in that area of your life becomes amazing. Because you tap into the giant within you and you become magnificent. So it is possible. In one area of your life where you are struggling, to be inside your comfort zone, where it's safe, where it's secure, where nothing is threatening you. But in another area of your life, it is also possible that you're in your fear zone. A third area, you can be in your learning zone, and in a fourth area, you're in your growth zone. So tonight, my challenge to you, have a look at the areas in your life where you're stuck. The areas in your life that are not working, where you want so much more for yourself. Stand in your zone of comfort where it's safe and secure, and understand what is that thin layer of fear that is holding you back. Understand whether that fear is real or whether that fear is in your mind. If it's a fear that is in your mind, make the choice. Make the choice to step through that fear zone. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. You have to go through that fear zone, because on the other side of that fear zone, the rest of your life awaits. A life of learning, a life of growth, a life of connecting to the giant within you, attaching into your magnificence. It's a choice. I encourage you to make the right choice. The right choice to get you to your growth zone. It's a choice to stay in your comfort zone or to move through your fear zone. What do you choose today? Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. Well, so many choices tonight. I choose growth. And it's so true. It's about being aware of what's happening in your, those doors that are partly open, that you're aware of them, that you peer through them in order to make those choices to get a good life and to become magnificent. So it's quite interesting. Both you and Rebecca spoke about choice, and both you and Tyron have spoken about a growth mindset, or a growth, dramatic growth. But it's all about growth. It's all about taking those opportunities and being aware and making the right choices. Sorry about that. I had a cat jump off the cupboard. Sorry about that. So thank you, Leslie. That was really great. We should always also look for reinvention and transition, and just step out of our fear and take that risk. Thank you. So now I would like to bring the next speaker up, and that is, let me just get it out, it's Khutso Motemekwani. So Khutso is an educator and personal development public speaker. He's best known for his charismatic passion for personal and professional growth of humankind. He is a distinguished speaker who found his organization and his movement, which aims to help young people to develop sound life and better decision-making skills. To date, his movement has reached over 10,000 young people. So the Peer Helper program aimed at assisting other students to adjust, manage, and progress through university challenges. So he mentors his young school learners, reaching that 10,000 high school learners. And in talking to students, he says he's a great thinker because his head is similar to that of Jacob Zuma. So don't test him, as he has two heads in his butternut head. So welcome, Khutso.
Thank you, Louise. I don't know what to say. It's an honor and pleasure to be invited here. I thank God for this opportunity. You know, life is something. To this day, I'm just going to share the tools and the principles I've used to get where I am today. I don't claim that I've already succeeded in life, but there's one thing that I know. I am better than where I used to be because of God and some of the principles that I've used to be where I am today. Now, there's a quote by Jerry West that says, if you only work on the days when you feel good, you won't achieve much in life. That got me thinking that there are times whereby we don't feel good. There are times whereby we don't feel like going out. What do we do during those times? Then I started to research more about the mindset of hunters. Then I discovered hunters are one of those great people with a great mindset, because they have a certain mindset that assists them to achieve their daily goals, because they understand one thing, that the greatest question on earth, it's not what, but it's why. Why they need to wake up each and every day to go after that pride, why they need to go each and every day to find something to eat, because they understand that it's not only about them, but it's about their families. So the minute that we take our dreams so serious to an extent that it's not only about us, but it's also about the people that were depending on us. Because there's a great quote that says, remember, you living your dreams, it's not only emancipating you, but other people, through seeing you making progress in life, already you liberate them from their own pity and from their own things. Now, I want to ask you something. Imagine each and every day, if you were singing a song, today I don't feel like doing anything, nothing at all. And then how much you could have achieved if you can use that mindset. However, if you can change your mindset to a positive mindset of hunters, understanding that each and every day it counts, irrespective of how you feel. Because the hunters understand one thing. It's that it's not about how they feel, but it's about what they need. They have the end goal in mind because they don't fear anything. It's like what Steve Biko said, that it is better to live for a dream than to die for a, it's better to die for a dream that will live rather than to live for a dream that will die. Now, each and every day when you wake up, you need to change your mindset. You look life through the eyes of hunters. Now, the principles that I've used are three. They are drawn from a Chinese way of living. Now, recently, when I finished university, it was difficult for me to go and search for work, especially for someone who comes from a background in South Africa where we are living in semi-rural areas. Now, you are not eloquent, you are not articulate enough to speak English, and then you don't know other languages, whereby maybe if you can go to places where it is white dominated, then you can be able to speak Afrikaans. So it was difficult for me to start searching for work. So I started to read more. I started to read the book, the likes of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I started to read the book of Robert Kiyosaki, where he talks about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Then that's when I discovered the issue of mindset. That says intelligence produces and solves problems. However, the problem when it comes to ignorance is that it doesn't take you so far. Now, the Chinese live by these principles that I've applied in my life. The first one is the issue of sword. If you can see, America is investing mostly on weapons. Now, the question when we take it to personal development, our sword, what is our sword? Our sword must be two things. The first one is the issue of networks. Are your networks helping you to grow? Are your networks pouring more life onto you? Are your networks helping you each and every day to better your life? And secondly, is the issue of sponsorships. I know that from first-hand experience. When I was working at a TVET college, I used to have a bad attitude because I had this mindset that I want to become a best motivational speaker and an entrepreneur, so I don't need to work. You know that quote that says, your job, it makes you forget your dreams. But that has cost me because I finished school in 2015. To this day, I don't have a permanent job, but then I thank God at least I get contracts and so forth. That's when I realized the issue of sponsorships. Sponsorship is someone who can be able to advocate for you in rooms where you won't be there, especially in your area or in your industry. Like myself, I'm in education industry. So I need someone that will be able to advocate for me, let alone in my personal development or my public speaking career. So that's one thing that we need. You need to have the great networks and you need to have a good relationship with your sponsors. The second thing is the issue of jewel. It speaks about jewelry. Now, here it speaks about the issue of how do you get more from other people's mindset, like your associates. Are the people in your group making you a better person? Are the people in your group can call you in a table full of opportunities, or they only call you in a table full of excuses and complaints? That's one question that we need to ask ourselves as we go to bed this night. The third one, which is my favorite, that has helped me to overcome stress and depression, is the issue of mirror. The mirror symbolizes the issue of self-knowledge, Do you know who you are? Who you are makes a difference. Who you are when you don't have the material things in your life, who you are really means you can be able to achieve whatever that you have lost in your life. Who you are, the self-knowledge. But in order for you to know yourself, you need to develop two things that I live by. It's faith. Faith, it says that whenever things don't go in your way, you go back to God and say, as my manufacturer, God, what do I do? Because I live by one thing. Even if now I'm 30 years old, I don't get a job, I'll get it at the age of 40. But I understand that my God will be able to assist me and to repay me for all those years. It's the faith that keeps me living. It's the faith that says, I know one day that I'll achieve all my dreams. As long as I work towards my dreams, as long as I have a positive mindset, as long as each and every day I bring the best in what I do. Now, we need the mindset of hunters. Hunters don't care what people say. Hunters don't care what is the weather. Hunters understand that there's a season whereby you need to go on the minute that you know that at this particular time, I need to go on and hunt, irrespective of how I feel, irrespective of how I do things. But the most important thing is that it's that I have this thing that I need to do. Because my focus now, it's towards the goal. Because I'm a hunter. That's my job. That's my life. Now, the only thing that will kill us as hunters, good people, it's several things which were stated by Dr. Miles Monroe. It's politics without principles. It's faith without works. It's worship without sacrifice. It's business without ethics. And then it's life without plans. It's pleasure. It's pleasure without conscience. And then it's knowledge without character. It's useless to have knowledge, but not character. Now, let's go back and look life through the eyes of hunters. Remember, the hunter doesn't care how the weather it is. The hunter doesn't care how he feels on that day, but he understands one thing, that it's not about me anymore, but it's about those who are depending on me. It is necessary to achieve your dreams because you are the only person that you are waiting for yourself to come and rescue you. No political party, no financial economic state of the country can assist you, only you. Because intelligence, as Robert Kiyosaki has said, produces money. However, money without intelligence is money soon gone. So everything starts with the mindset. Let's go and have a positive mindset. The only thing that keeps me going to this far is the positive mindset and having faith on God and believing on my dreams, even if they don't seem valid. Because there's an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. This is Khotso Motemekwane saying that when you go back to your drawing board, remember, it's not about the plan, but it's the one who's behind the plan. We have beautiful plans, but it's all about how do we initiate and take action. Thank you, Lois, for inviting me tonight.
Wow. I loved some of your analogies. It's really fantastic. We spoke about mindset of the hunter, and you had the mirror and the jewel, and it was really very, very insightful. So thank you for sharing that. It's so important that we have those networks, that we have those connections, because we can't go alone, and we need to follow our dreams and get somebody to support us and advocate for us. So that was great. Thank you so very much. And now I call on our final speaker of the evening. And Chris Kennedy, I have to thank her especially as well. She spoke on our last get-together, and she stood in at the last minute again to help us tonight. And Chris and I have done work together over the past number of months. I know her well. She's an amazing woman. She's a generative change consultant, helping you harness your inner potential to achieve success and happiness. Because of her work supporting the women of South Africa, Chris, a child of incest, her grandfather is her father, was invited by Penguin Random House to write her book, Chris Kennedy's Phenomenal Woman, Your Journey to a Phenomenal Life. And the publisher was so impressed with it that they added a photograph of her on the book, which at that time was against their policies. So I'd love to welcome Chris Kennedy to the stage.
Thank you, Lois. It's great to be back again. Yeah, the book was interesting. I remember the publisher phoned me when they heard about the work I was doing, and they said to me, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was very cool. I said, that sounds like a good idea. And when the phone went down, I was running around the house going, yes, yes, yes. And afterwards, when I met with the publisher, she said to me, you sounded so disinterested. And I thought, well, you should have seen me after the phone call ended. So yeah, my life story, I'd like to share a little bit about my life story. So as Lois has said, way back in the 50s, my grandfather decided to have sex with his daughter, my mother, and I was the product of that sexual interaction between the two of them. He actually abused her when she was a child, and appallingly, when she was very young, he damaged her. And in order to hide what he'd done to her, he actually put her in a pot of boiling water. So she was very scarred emotionally in just about every way. So when she discovered she was pregnant, she was married, she already had a child. When she discovered she was pregnant, she decided that she'd better do something about it. And in those days, abortion wasn't freely available. So she tried the old-fashioned way, which was gin and hot baths. And there I was in the womb holding on, determined to get to be born. And I was. Which is interesting because it's an interesting story. I can go from disaster to disaster. So when I was 4 years old, the same man who is my father, he actually started abusing me sexually. He abused me for 4 years. And when my mother found him doing it, she blamed me. She said it was my fault and I was a slut and a whore. And if I told anyone, she would throw me out on the streets. And for 4 years, if my grandfather felt like having sex, I was the person he turned to. The man my mother was married to was a misogynist. He believed there were two sorts of women. There were sluts and there were wives. So by the time I was 16, 17 years old, still at school, I actually was at school with an engagement ring on my finger. So I was 19 the first time I got married, and I've been married 4 times. And each time a different form of disaster. And I think the reason I share my story is because a lot of us have experiences in life where we wake up with the best intentions. We go into a business, we go into a relationship, we go into a friendship, we go into a set of circumstances with the best of intentions. We don't intend to shoot ourselves in the foot. But because of what has happened to us that we're not always aware of, we can find that we cannot find those seeds of success and create a success that we want for ourselves, for our families, etc. So I careered from disaster to disaster in terms of relationships, fairly successful in business, but careered, as I said, from disaster to disaster, been married 4 times. Each husband had a different problem. The net result was by the time I was 38 years old, I had another man that left me. I couldn't cope with it, and I took an overdose. And I ended up on the dining room floor, passed out. And when I woke up, I lay on the dining room floor. And I think this is one of those moments that one of the other speakers was talking about, that moment that defines you, you know. And I lay on the floor thinking, if I lie here, will I die? Do I need to get up and take some more pills? And this voice in my head, which I still to this day don't believe was my voice, said, well, if you don't die, the next 38 years of your life need to be different. And I ended up picking myself up off the floor. I ended up seeing a psychiatrist for 2 months who diagnosed me. It was great to have a diagnosis. Why? no matter what I tried, my life wasn't working. And he told me I thought too much. And I remember thinking, thought too much, what? And then I went, oh, listen to that going on in your head. And there was a lot of negative stuff that went on in my head. You know, whenever I went into anything, I was anticipating disaster. Even if I threw my heart and soul into something, there was always fear that someone else talked about. You have to break through the fear. And one of the tricks that I'd like to share with you that I learned to still this mind, to manage negativity, because all of us have that negativity. I listened to the speaker earlier on talking about the 50s and the 60s and the various things that were happening politically, and Lois saying, yes, I grew up in that era. I was there too. I mean, I remember a British TV film that was produced, What to Do in the Event of an Atomic Attack. We had to wet blankets and hang them up at the window, what they thought that would do. But I guess it gave us something to do to stop the fear. So what can you do if you are being driven not by positivity, not by a goal? What can you do if your mind runs you and it's not running you well? And one of the tricks that I teach all my clients who come to me who are overwhelmed by life events, I say to them, you are allowed to think negatively. Don't try and fight it, because what I resist persists. So you may think negatively for 10 minutes of every hour. Pick your 10 minutes. You know, it can be when the big hand is on the 12 until it moves to the 2, but a specific 10 minutes of every hour. You can indulge yourself and you can think the worst. You can think horrible things about people. You can allow your mind to run along that negative train track and do its worst. But at the end of 10 minutes, you tell it to shut up and you get up and you move on. And it's really interesting because that's stage one. Stage one, and I say to them, you do it every hour, every single hour of the day. And usually what happens is the first day they're into it and they're waiting for the 10 minutes so they can think negatively. And after a few hours go by, they find themselves looking at the clock and going, oh, I missed my 10 minutes. And you can't make up. You can't say, oh, I missed my 10 minutes, so I'm going to do it now. You have to do it at the same 10 minutes. And what people find is over a period of time, they lose interest in thinking negatively. And once they've told that negative part of themselves that this is not your time, you can come back in that 10 minutes, but you can't come back at any other time, they suddenly find themselves moving on and not being negative. Now, I have to hurry because I've only got a minute. Stage 2 is you have to do, or phase 2, step 2, you have to do one thing every day that contributes positively to your future. Only one thing, because sometimes life feels like a mountain. You feel overwhelmed by what's going on, but you have to do one thing every single day. And it's amazing how quickly those things actually build towards your future. And then finally, the last thing you have to do when you've done step 1, step 2, step 3 is you have to start creating a vision for yourself of what things will be like when. What things will be like when something works for me. What things will be like if. So you create possibility. So step 1, 10 minutes of every hour, you're allowed to think negatively, not at any other time. Step 2, you need to actually do one thing that contributes positively towards your future, even if it's just phoning up the credit card company and organizing how you're going to pay that outstanding debt. And step 3 is start creating a vision that actually pulls you into the future. And my vision of the future is I have an 83-year-old Chris, and she's a bit of a tough cookie, but I always live my life towards being that person who has lived that life and is actually happy with all the things that happen to her, even the negative things like the abuse, like the incest. They've actually made me stronger. So I live, my vision of myself is what I'll look like when I'm 83 years old and I've conquered all that stuff. And I'm proud of myself because even the things that happen now that I think of negatively, by the time I'm 83, I can see the design and the pattern that make me the person I am, the strong woman I am, and the successful woman that I am. Thank you, Lois. It's been great to come back again.
And you are an amazing woman. The fact that you can share your story so vulnerably, so openly, it's really, truly magnificent. And that you've got those 3 steps that you can share with others and help others to overcome, because you've overcome more than most people could bear. So well done on your journey. You are a true inspiration to many. So that brings us to the end of our 8x8. So 8 phenomenal speakers, amazing speakers with incredible stories to share. And the story started off with having dreams and visions, knowing where you want to go, having a plan, and then self-care and self-awareness. Who are you? How do you care for your body, your mind, your spirit? Every aspect of your life, it's self-care, looking in that mirror and knowing who you are. And then building that resilience, having that resilience, looking after your brain, looking after the growth in your life, having the growth mindset or the traumatic growth mindset that helps you go forward, keep learning, having that lifelong learning attitude. And that mindset that allows you to step through your fear, those defining moments, to recognize those defining moments in order to be successful in life. And then finally, it's about communication. Negotiate, communicate, share. Communication fixes everything. So once again, thank you to these 8 amazing speakers. Such a diverse range of topics, yet all with a similar thread running through. And thank you again to Vicky for giving us this opportunity, and for Jane it must be 3 or 4 in the morning now for sitting there doing the backroom stuff. We really, really appreciate your dedication and your commitment to hope, inspiration, and transformation. Thank you. I am Lois. Good night.
Thank you so much, Lois, and to all. Thank you so much, Lois, and to all of your speakers for such an amazing Hit Talks episode. You know, everything absolutely happens for a reason, and I've got to say from the bottom of my heart, it just gives me the greatest pleasure to present these amazing beings to the viewers that are watching live and watching on the replay of Hit Talks. If you have watched this, and if you've taken any snippets of hope, inspiration, and transformation from these messages, please share them with the people that you love. And also, I would like to say that if you would like to host your own special edition of Hit Talks, where you're the host, you bring together your own 8 speakers, and these 8 speakers speak from the heart for 8 minutes on hope, inspiration, and transformation, please reach out to us. But in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Hit Talks. See you now.